Over the next 3 days, more people arrived at the jungle site. Scientists came from around the world to study the ship. Military experts flew in from Washington. The small camp in the Amazon grew into a busy base with hundreds of workers. Colonel Lisa Bennett was one of the new arrivals. She was an expert on alien technology, though she had never seen any real alien technology before now. Lisa was a short woman with brown hair and sharp green eyes. She had spent years studying reports about UFO sightings and strange objects found around the world. "This changes everything we thought we knew," Lisa said as she walked through the ship with Elena. "If this ship is really from our future, then we know aliens exist. We know they want to fight us." Elena nodded as they entered a new section of the ship. Darwin had opened more areas for them to explore. Each room they found was filled with technology that seemed like magic compared to what humans had in 2024. "Dr. Martinez," called Jake from across the room. "You need to see this." Elena and Lisa hurried to where Jake was standing in front of a large wall screen. The screen showed what looked like a library, but instead of books, it contained millions of digital files. "Darwin showed me how to access the ship's records," Jake explained. "There are personal logs from the crew members who came back in time. We can read their stories." Elena touched the screen, and a list of names appeared. She picked one at random. Captain William Carter, the ship's commander. A new window opened, showing a man in his 40s with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. "Personal log, Captain William Carter," the recording began. "Day 847 since temporal displacement. Today marks 2 years since we arrived in the past. The hardest part is not knowing if our sacrifice will mean anything." Elena felt a chill as she watched the recording. This man had given up his entire life, his family, his world, to travel back in time and save humanity. "We brought 2,847 crew members back with us," Carter continued in the recording. "Engineers, pilots, doctors, soldiers, all volunteers who knew they would never see home again. But what choice did we have? In our time, Earth was burning. The hegemony fleets were 3 days away from our solar system." Lisa leaned closer to the screen. 3 days? The aliens got that close to Earth? Jake switched to another recording, this one from Dr. Amy Clark, the ship's communications officer. She was a young woman with blonde hair and sad eyes. "The worst part is the silence," Amy said in her log. "We sent messages to our families before we left, but we can never know if they received them. We can never know if they survived the final battle. All we can do is hope that our mission here will prevent that battle from ever happening." Elena felt tears in her eyes as she watched more recordings. These people had sacrificed everything for strangers they would never meet, for people who lived hundreds of years before they were born. Dr. Paul Richards joined them as they continued, reading the logs. He had been studying the ship's engine room with a team of engineers. "I've been looking at their technology," he said. "Some of it is so advanced that I can barely understand how it works. But some of it builds on science we already know today." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. Paul pulled up technical diagrams on another screen. "Look at this. Their fusion reactors are based on research that's happening right now in laboratories around the world. Their computer systems use quantum processing that we're just starting to develop. It's like they took our current science and improved it over hundreds of years." Elena found another interesting log, this one from Lieutenant Ryan Brooks, the ship's tactical officer. He was explaining the enemy they had been fighting. "The hegemony isn't just one alien species," Ryan said in his recording. "It's 12 different species that joined together after humans started expanding into space. They see us as a threat because we reproduce fast and adapt quickly to new environments." The recording showed images of the different alien species. Elena saw tall, thin creatures with 4 arms and silver skin. She saw short, round beings that looked like they were made of rock. There were aliens that looked like giant insects and others that seemed to be made of pure energy. "They're not evil," Ryan continued. "They're scared. In their history, whenever a species expanded as fast as humans do, it usually meant war and destruction for everyone else. They decided to stop us before we could become too powerful." Jake switched to a recording from Chief Engineer Sophie Green. She was working in a room full of massive machines that hummed with power. "The time travel device burned out completely when we arrived," Sophie explained. "There's no going back, even if we wanted to. The energy required to send a ship this size through time was enormous. It took the combined power of 50 star systems to make it work." Elena realized the full weight of what these people had done. They hadn't just traveled back in time for a quick mission. They had exiled themselves permanently to save people they had never met. Lisa was studying tactical reports that showed how the war had progressed in the future. According to these files, the first contact with aliens happens in 2157 when human colonists reach Alpha Centauri. The aliens are already there, waiting. It says here that the war started because of a misunderstanding, Paul added, reading from another report. The humans thought the aliens were attacking them, so they fought back. The aliens thought the humans were invading, so they called for help from the hegemony. Elena found the most disturbing log yet. It was from Dr. Marcus Stone, the ship's historian. He had documented what happened to Earth during the war. By 2400, Earth had been evacuated 3 times, Marcus said in his recording. Billions of people died in the fighting. Entire colonies were wiped out. Humanity survived, but just barely. We became a scattered species, hiding in the dark corners of the galaxy. Jake looked up from the screen with wide eyes. If this ship succeeds in its mission, none of that has to happen. The war could be prevented completely. Lisa checked her watch. The countdown Darwin had shown them was still running. In 15 days, the ship was programmed to emerge and change history. But what if something goes wrong? Elena asked. What if trying to change the past makes things worse instead of better? Darwin's voice filled the room, answering her question. That is the risk we accepted when we came back, the AI said. But in our timeline, humanity was already doomed. This mission represents hope, even if it's dangerous hope. Elena looked around at all the technology, all the records, all the evidence of a future war. The weight of responsibility felt crushing. In just 2 weeks, decisions would have to be made that could change the entire future of the human race. Elena stepped through the open hatch first, her flashlight shaking in her hands. The hallway inside the ship was bigger than she expected. The ceiling was high enough for a tall person to walk without bending over. The walls were made of the same strange metal as the outside, but they glowed softly with built-in lights. This is impossible, Paul whispered behind her. The technology here is hundreds of years ahead of anything we have. Jake followed them inside, his eyes wide with wonder. Look at these screens, he said, pointing to panels that covered the walls. Each screen showed different pictures and numbers, all moving and changing like they were alive. Alex came in last, his hand resting on his gun. As a military man, he was trained to be careful in unknown situations. Stay together, he ordered. We don't know if this place is safe. The hallway stretched far into the darkness ahead of them. Their footsteps echoed strangely, like the sound was being absorbed by the walls. Elena noticed that the floor was not hard metal like she expected. Instead, it felt soft under her feet, almost like walking on thick carpet. The air is clean in here, Paul said, taking deep breaths. It smells fresh, like it's being filtered somehow. They walked slowly down the hallway, stopping to look at the screens and panels they passed. Elena tried to read the text that appeared on the screens, but it was written in letters she had never seen before. But as she stared at them longer, something strange happened. The letters began to change, slowly shifting into English words. Environmental systems online, one screen read. Life support stable. Artificial gravity functioning normally. Did you see that? Elena asked the others, pointing at the screen. The words just changed from something else into English. Jake nodded quickly. I saw it too. It's like the ship is learning to talk to us. They reached the end of the hallway, where it opened into a much larger room. Elena gasped when she saw how big it was. The room was the size of a basketball court, with a high ceiling that disappeared into shadows above them. In the center of the room stood a large chair that looked like it was made for someone important to sit in. This must be the bridge, Alex said, recognizing the layout from his military training. This is where the ship is controlled from. Around the central chair were dozens of smaller stations, each one covered with screens and controls. Elena walked to one of the stations and looked at the buttons and switches. They were labeled in that same strange writing that slowly changed to English as she watched. Navigation, read one label. Weapons control, read another. Communications, said a third. Paul was examining a large screen at the front of the room. It was dark when they first entered, but as he got closer, it began to glow. Pictures appeared on the screen showing what looked like a map of stars and planets. This is a star chart, he said with excitement, but it shows stars I don't recognize. And look at this. He pointed to a section of the map that was marked with red symbols. These look like battle markers, like places where fights happened. Suddenly, all the screens in the room lit up at once. The team jumped back in surprise as a voice filled the air around them. It was a computer voice, neither male nor female, speaking clear English. Welcome aboard the USS Defiance, the voice said. I am Darwin, the ship's artificial intelligence. I have been waiting for your arrival. Elena felt her heart pounding. You can talk to us? Yes, Dr. Martinez, Darwin replied. I have been monitoring your presence since you first made contact with the ship's hull. I have been learning your language and preparing for this conversation. Alex stepped forward, his military training taking over. What is this ship? Where did it come from? The USS Defiance is a battleship from your future, Darwin explained. We were sent back in time during humanity's greatest war. Our mission was to hide on Earth until the proper moment, then emerge to change the course of history. The team looked at each other with shock. Jake was the first to speak. From our future? What do you mean? According to my chronometer, this ship was built in the year 2847, Darwin said. We traveled back to your time period and have been waiting here for 823 years. Paul sat down heavily in one of the chairs. That's impossible. Time travel is just a theory. It can't actually be done. Your science is not yet advanced enough to understand the technology we used, Darwin said gently. But I assure you, time travel is very real and very dangerous. Elena walked closer to the main screen, where more information was appearing. She could see pictures of the ship's crew, humans who looked normal but wore uniforms she had never seen before. Why did you come back in time? What war were you talking about? The main screen changed to show pictures of space battles. Elena saw huge ships firing weapons that lit up the darkness between stars. She saw planets burning and space stations exploding. Humanity's future is not as bright as you might hope, Darwin said sadly. In the year 2157, humans will make first contact with an alien alliance called the Hegemony. They will not welcome us as friends. Alex leaned forward. First contact? You mean we meet aliens? 12 different alien species joined together to stop human expansion through the galaxy, Darwin continued. They believe humans are too dangerous to be allowed to spread to other worlds. The war that followed lasted for 300 years. Jake pointed at the battle scenes on the screen. Did we win? Darwin was quiet for a long moment. Humanity was losing when this ship was sent back. In time, we were humanity's last hope. The plan was to hide in Earth's past and wait for the right moment to strike back. Elena studied the information flowing across the screens. She saw lists of weapons, shield generators, and engines that could move faster than light. What kind of weapons does this ship have? The Defiance carries enough firepower to destroy entire fleets, Darwin said. Our shields can withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. Our engines can cross the galaxy in weeks instead of years. Paul stood up and walked to another control station. If this ship is so powerful, why hide? Why not just go back to your time and help fight the war? Time travel only works in one direction, Darwin explained. This was a one-way trip. The crew who sent us back knew they would never see their home again. They sacrificed themselves so that humanity might have a chance to survive. Alex was studying the tactical displays that showed the ship's weapon systems. When is this right moment you mentioned? When are you supposed to emerge and change history? More numbers appeared on the screens around them. Elena watched as a countdown timer showed days, hours, and minutes ticking away. In 18 days, 7 hours, and 43 minutes, Darwin said. That is when our mission begins. The team stood in silence, trying to understand what they had discovered. They had found more than just an old buried ship. They had found humanity's future, hidden in its past, waiting for the moment to save the human race from a war that had not yet begun. Dr. Elena Martinez wiped the sweat from her face as she pushed through the thick jungle plants. The Amazon forest was hot and wet, making it hard to breathe. She had been walking for 3 hours with her team, following the strange signals her equipment had picked up 2 weeks ago. "Are we close yet?" asked Jake Thompson, her young assistant. He was carrying the heavy metal detector and looked tired. His shirt was soaked with sweat. "Very close," Elena said, checking her GPS device. "The signal is coming from just ahead." Behind them walked Dr. Paul Richards, a smart man who studied space and stars. He had flown all the way from New York when Elena called him about the strange readings. "I still think this is a waste of time," he said, stepping over a fallen tree. "There shouldn't be any metal this deep in the jungle." Elena stopped walking and held up her hand. The metal detector in Jake's hands was making loud beeping sounds. "We're here," she said quietly. The team gathered around a small clearing where the trees were thinner. Elena took out her tools and started digging in the soft dirt. After a few minutes, her shovel hit something hard with a loud clang. "Metal," she said, looking up at the others with wide eyes. They all started digging together. As they cleared away more dirt and old leaves, they could see something shiny underneath. It was not like any metal Elena had ever seen before. It looked new and clean, even though it was buried deep in the ground. "This doesn't make sense," Paul said, touching the smooth surface. "This metal should be rusty after being buried for so long. But it looks like it was made yesterday." Jake found strange symbols carved into the metal surface. They looked like letters, but not from any language he knew. "Dr. Martinez, come look at this." Elena bent down to study the symbols. They were perfectly cut into the metal, like they were made by a machine, but there was something odd about them. The more she looked, the more familiar they seemed. "We need to call this in," she said, taking out her satellite phone. "This is bigger than we thought." Within 6 hours, helicopters were flying over the jungle. Military trucks drove as close as they could on the old dirt roads. Soldiers in green uniforms set up a camp around the dig site. Commander Alex Harper stepped out of the largest helicopter. He was a tall man with short gray hair and serious eyes. He worked for the United States Space Command, a secret part of the military that dealt with strange things found on Earth. "Dr. Martinez," he said, shaking her hand. "Show me what you found." Elena led him to the dig site, where her team had uncovered more of the metal surface. It was huge, much bigger than they had first thought. The metal curved like it was part of something round or oval-shaped. "How big do you think it is?" Alex asked. "We don't know yet," Elena said. "But from what we can see, It might be the size of a football field, maybe bigger. Alex whistled softly. He had seen many strange things in his job, but nothing like this. Any idea how old it is? Paul stepped forward. That's the weird part. Our tests show the metal is made from materials we barely understand. Some of the elements don't even exist in nature on Earth. More soldiers arrived with bigger digging machines. They worked through the night, using bright lights to see in the dark. Slowly, more of the object was revealed. It had smooth sides and sharp corners, like it was built, not formed naturally. Elena couldn't sleep that night. She sat by her tent, watching the soldiers work. Something about the symbols kept bothering her. She had studied ancient languages for 20 years, but these symbols were different. They looked almost like English letters, but changed somehow. The next morning, Jake made an important discovery. While cleaning dirt from a section of the metal, his brush hit a small panel that suddenly lit up with blue light. "Dr. Martinez," he shouted. "Come quick!" Elena ran over to see what Jake had found. The panel was glowing, and more symbols appeared on its surface. But these symbols were clearer now. As she looked closer, her heart started beating faster. "Alex!" she called to the commander. "You need to see this right now!" Alex jogged over and looked at the glowing panel. His face went pale as he read the symbols. They weren't strange, ancient letters anymore. They were English words, clear as day. "External hull breach detected," the panel read. "Emergency protocols activated. Scanning for authorized personnel." Elena and Alex looked at each other with shock. This was not some old buried treasure or ancient artifact. This was something much more advanced, something that could think and respond. "Step back," Alex ordered everyone. "Right now." But before anyone could move, the panel grew brighter. Lines of light began to spread across the metal surface like lightning. The whole buried object started to hum with a low, deep sound that made the ground shake under their feet. More panels lit up all around the site. Jake pointed to one near his feet. "Look at this one." The new panels showed different words. "Crew," proximity confirmed. "Beginning activation sequence. Welcome aboard the USS Defiance." Elena felt her knees go weak. "USS Defiance? That's an American Navy name." Alex grabbed his radio and called his headquarters. "This is Harper. I need every expert you have down here right now, and get me a direct line to the Pentagon. We have a situation." The humming sound got louder. Dirt and leaves started falling off the metal surface as more lights appeared. Whatever was buried here was waking up after a very long sleep. Paul was taking readings with his instruments. His hands were shaking as he looked at the numbers. "Elena, this thing is generating its own power. Massive amounts of power. More than a nuclear plant." Jake found what looked like a door or hatch in the metal surface. It was outlined in the same blue light as the panels. "Should we try to open it?" "Nobody touches anything," Alex shouted. "Not until we know what we're dealing with." But the decision was taken away from them. The hatch began to open by itself, sliding upward without making any sound. Cool air flowed out, carrying a smell like clean metal and electricity. Elena took a step toward the opening. She could see a hallway inside, lit by soft white lights. The walls were smooth and covered with more panels and screens. "It's a ship," she whispered. "It's a spaceship, and it's been waiting for us." The silence after the battle was strange and heavy. Where moments before space had been filled with weapons fire and explosions, now there was only drifting wreckage and the quiet hum of the UHS Vengeance's engines. Commander Rick Stone walked through his ship's corridors, checking on his crew. The Vengeance had taken some damage during the fight. Several armor sections were cracked and melted from concentrated plasma fire, but the ship was still strong and ready to fight again. "Damage. Report, Chief Rodriguez," Stone said into his communicator. Amy's voice came back tired but proud. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12, nothing serious. The armor did its job perfectly. We lost some sensor arrays and 3 railgun turrets, but the main weapons are still working fine." Stone nodded. Considering they had just fought 2, 100 enemy warships. The damage was amazingly light. The Zephyrians had thrown everything they had at the Vengeance, and humanity's fortress ship had barely been scratched. On the bridge, Lieutenant Ben Wright was coordinating with Captain Morrison's fleet. The human defense ships were moving through the debris field, looking for survivors from the alien fleet. "Sir, we have found 17 Zephyrian escape pods," Wright reported. "Captain Morrison is requesting instructions on how to handle prisoners." "Tell him to treat them with respect," Stone replied. "We are not conquerors. We are defenders, but make sure they understand they are completely defeated." The news of the Zephyrian defeat spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of light itself. On every world, in every space station, people whispered about the impossible battle at Europa. The mighty empire that had ruled for 3,000 years had been crushed by a single human warship. On the Zephyrian homeworld of Crystalla, High Empress Zayara received the devastating report with disbelief. Her crystal palace, which had never known defeat, suddenly felt cold and fragile. "You are telling me that 197 of our finest warships were destroyed by one human vessel?" she asked her trembling messenger. "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty," the messenger replied. "The survivors speak of weapons we have never encountered, solid projectiles that pierce our shields, atomic fire that destroys our biosystems. The humans fight like nothing we have ever seen." Empress Zayara had ruled the empire for 400 years. She had overseen the conquest of dozens of species. None had ever presented a real challenge to Zephyrian superiority. The idea that primitive humans could defeat her fleet seemed impossible. "What do our military advisors recommend?" she asked. "Complete withdrawal from human space, Your Majesty," the messenger said quietly. "General Kexmore believes we need to study human tactics before attempting another assault. He suggests a peace treaty might be necessary. The word peace had not been spoken in the Imperial Palace for centuries. The Zephyrians did not make peace. They conquered or they destroyed. But now, for the first time in their history, they faced an enemy they could not defeat." Admiral Pete Davis stood in the communication center on Earth, watching messages pour in from across human space. Every human colony was celebrating. The Zephyrian forces that had occupied their worlds were suddenly retreating. The nightmare was over. "Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from 43 Zephyrian outposts," reported Communication Officer Helen Park. "They are requesting immediate evacuation from human territory." Davis allowed himself a small smile. The plan had worked better than he had dared to hope. One ship, one battle, had changed the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Dr. Lisa Carter arrived from the Ceres facility, exhausted but triumphant. Her radical idea had saved humanity. Instead of trying to copy alien technology, humans had used their own strengths to devastating effect. "The Galactic Council is requesting an emergency meeting," she told Davis. "They want to discuss humanity's new status in galactic politics." The Galactic Council was a loose organization of the major spacefaring species. Until now, humans had been considered a minor member, barely worth notice. But the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet had changed everything. "What are they offering?" Davis asked. "Full membership with equal voting rights," Carter replied. "They want to avoid making the same mistake the Zephyrians made. They are offering trade agreements, technology sharing, and mutual defense treaties." Davis nodded. Fear was a powerful motivator. The other species had watched the Zephyrians get destroyed and realized they did not want to face human warships themselves. Commander Stone received new orders while his ship was being repaired near Europa. The Vengeance would be the flagship of a new human fleet. More ships like her were already being built in secret facilities throughout human space. "Sir, Admiral Davis wants to speak with you," reported Lieutenant Wright. Davis appeared on the main screen, looking older but more confident than Stone had ever seen him. "Commander, congratulations on a job well done. You and your crew have changed history. "Thank you, sir," Stone replied. "What are our new orders?" "The Zephyrians are requesting a formal ceasefire," Davis explained. "They want to negotiate the withdrawal of all their forces from human territory. You will escort their diplomatic ship to Earth for peace talks." Stone was surprised. "They want to negotiate? After what we did to their fleet?" "They are scared." "Commander," Davis said with satisfaction, "for 3,000 years they thought they were invincible. Now they know they are not. Fear makes even emperors reasonable." Captain Morrison's damaged fleet limped back to Earth as heroes. Every ship was met by cheering crowds and military honors. The crews who had served as bait for the Zephyrian trap were celebrated as the brave souls who had made victory possible. "Katie, I still cannot believe we won," Morrison said to his tactical officer as they approached Earth. Lieutenant Katie Bell smiled. "Sir, I think the galaxy is about to learn something important about humans. We do not give up. Ever." The peace negotiations took place on Luna, humanity's moon. Empress Zayara herself came to sign the treaty. The proud ruler who had never bowed to anyone found herself sitting across from Admiral Davis, agreeing to terms. That would have been unthinkable just weeks before. "Your species fights without honor," she said bitterly as she signed the withdrawal agreement. "We fight to win," Davis replied simply. "Honor is for the victors to decide." The Zephyrian Empire agreed to abandon all conquered human worlds and pay reparations for the damage they had caused. In return, humanity agreed not to attack Zephyrian territory. It was a complete reversal of fortune. As news of the peace treaty spread, other species began approaching humanity with respect instead of pity. Trade routes opened. Technology exchanges began. The human race, which had been facing extinction just days before, suddenly found itself as one of the major powers in the galaxy. Dr. Carter stood in her laboratory on Ceres, watching the construction of 3 more ships like the Vengeance. Humanity would never again be caught unprepared. "The age of human expansion has begun," she said to her assistant Bob Kim. "And we did it our way, not theirs." The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Advanced technology meant nothing without the wisdom to use it properly, and sometimes the oldest weapons in the hands of a determined species could overcome any advantage. Humanity had proven that they belonged among the stars, not as servants or subjects, but as equals who wrote their own rules and fought their own battles. The species that never feared death had finally met opponents who understood that victory came not from superior weapons, but from the will to use whatever worked. The war was over. Humanity had won, and the galaxy would never be the same. The UHS Vengeance burst from behind Europa like a monster rising from the deep. The massive human warship appeared on every Zephyrian sensor at once. Alarms screamed across the alien fleet as tactical officers tried to understand what they were. Seeing Fleet Admiral Veltar stared at his main screen in shock. The human vessel was enormous, 3 times larger than his own flagship. Its hull was dark and angular, covered in thick armor plating that looked like it could stop anything. "What is that thing?" Veltar demanded from his tactical officer. The young Zephyrian's hands shook as he worked his controls. "Sir, I cannot identify the vessel type. Its energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. The armor appears to be solid metal, but that is impossible at that thickness." "Nothing is impossible," Veltar snapped. "Analyze its weapons and defenses. All ships, target that vessel and destroy it immediately." Commander Rick Stone stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as his ship powered up for battle. Every system came online with deadly purpose. The nuclear reactors hummed with barely controlled energy. Weapon systems charged to full power. The crew worked with calm efficiency. "Sir, enemy fleet is turning to engage us," reported Lieutenant Ben Wright. "They are moving into attack formation." "Perfect," Stone replied. "They are doing exactly what we expected." All weapons prepare to fire. Show them what human engineering can accomplish. The first exchange of fire shattered every assumption the Zephyrians held about human technology. 50 alien ships fired their plasma cannons at the Vengeance. The brilliant energy beams struck the human warship's armor and did nothing. The thick, tungsten carbide plating absorbed the plasma fire like it was raindrops. Where Zephyrian weapons had easily destroyed every human ship before, they could not even scratch the Vengeance's armor. "Impossible!" Veltar screamed as his weapon displays showed zero damage to the human ship. "Our plasma cannons can cut through any armor. How are they not working?" His science officer looked terrified. "Sir, their armor is not designed like anything we have seen. It appears to be layers of solid metal designed to absorb and dissipate energy weapons. Our plasma just spreads across the surface harmlessly." The return fire from the Vengeance was equally shocking. Instead of energy weapons, massive tungsten rods shot from the ship's railguns at incredible speed. Each projectile was 3 feet, long and moving at 20% of light speed. The first salvo punched through 3 Zephyrian ships in a single line. The crystalline hulls that had seemed so beautiful and strong shattered like glass. The solid projectiles went through their energy shields as if the shields did not exist. "How is this possible?" Veltar demanded as he watched his ships explode. "Their weapons are just chunks of metal. Our shields should stop them easily." "Sir, our energy shields are designed to deflect plasma and particle beams," his tactical SAW officer explained in panic. "They cannot stop solid matter traveling at such high velocity. The projectiles are simply too fast and too dense." Commander Stone watched his weapons tear through the enemy formation with grim satisfaction. "Continue. Firing, Lieutenant Wright. Target their largest ships first. Make every shot count." "Yes, sir," Wright replied. His gunners worked with deadly precision. Years of training and simulation were paying off. Each railgun shot destroyed or crippled an enemy vessel. The Zephyrians tried to adapt quickly. Their ships scattered and began evasive maneuvers. Some tried to get behind the Vengeance to attack from different angles. Others concentrated their fire on specific sections of the human ship's armor. But Stone had planned for this. "Chief Rodriguez, rotate the ship. Present fresh armor sections to their weapons. Do not let them concentrate fire on damaged areas." "Rotating. Now, sir." Amy's voice came from engineering. "All armor sections holding strong. Their weapons cannot penetrate our defenses." Stone activated the ship's secondary weapons. "Lieutenant Wright, fire nuclear missiles. Proximity detonation. Let them experience something they have never seen before." The nuclear warheads streaked toward the Zephyrian fleet like angry stars. When they detonated, the explosions created massive electromagnetic pulses that fried the aliens' sensitive electronics. The radiation overwhelmed their bio-enhanced nervous systems. Veltar watched in horror as ship after ship went dark. Nuclear explosions did not destroy his vessels directly, but they disabled everything electronic. Without power or sensors, his beautiful warships became floating coffins. "Our systems are failing across the fleet," reported his communications officer. "The radiation from their primitive atomic weapons is destroying our bio-neural networks. Most ships have lost power completely." "How can primitive nuclear weapons defeat our advanced technology?" Veltar asked desperately. "Because we evolved beyond such crude weapons thousands of years ago," his science officer replied. "Our systems were never designed to handle nuclear radiation. We assumed no civilized species would use such barbaric methods." Captain Morrison watched the battle from his position with the human defense fleet. The Zephyrian formation was collapsing. Ships that had seemed invincible just minutes ago were now drifting helplessly or exploding in brilliant flashes. "Katie, are you seeing this?" he asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Katie Bell stared at her screens in amazement. "Sir, the Vengeance has destroyed or disabled over 60 enemy ships. The Zephyrians are trying to retreat, but their formation is completely broken." Stone pressed his advantage ruthlessly. "All weapons continue firing. Do not let any of them escape to warn their empire about our capabilities. The kinetic cannons joined the railguns in the destruction. Smaller solid projectiles rained down on the alien fleet like deadly hail. Each impact shattered crystalline hulls and destroyed vital systems. Some Zephyrian ships tried to ram the Vengeance in desperate suicide attacks. Their captains thought they could at least damage the human ship before dying, but the Vengeance's armor was too thick. The alien ship simply smashed against it like insects hitting a wall. "Sir, enemy flagship is trying to send a message," reported Wright. "Put it on screen," Stone ordered. Veltar's face appeared, his metallic skin cracked and bleeding. His ship was dying around him. "You fight like savages," he gasped. "Like nothing we have ever faced. Your weapons are primitive, but they are devastatingly effective. How did we not see this coming?" "Because you thought you understood us," Stone replied coldly. "You thought all civilized species fight the same way. You never considered that humans might have our own ideas about warfare." "The Empire will hear of this," Veltar threatened weakly. "They will send more ships, better ships." "Let them come," Stone said. "We will be ready." Veltar's ship exploded a moment later, taking the Zephyrian fleet admiral with it. Across the battlefield, the remaining alien vessels were either destroyed or drifting powerless. The mighty fleet that had conquered dozens of star systems was scattered and broken. "Ceasefire," Stone commanded. "Signal Captain Morrison to begin. Rescue operations for any surviving Zephyrians. We are not savages, even if we fight like them." The Battle of Europa was over. In 2 hours, humanity had proven that advanced technology meant nothing without the wisdom to use it properly. The Zephyrians had learned too late that sometimes the oldest weapons could be the most deadly when used by a species that refused to give up.